Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Gotham Chess openings video. It's been a while since I made a video on this channel dedicated to the analysis of just a pure, straight-up chess opening, but this one's going to be a little bit unique. For those of you that have been watching me for a long time, you know that I have a lot of openings videos. For those of you that are new to my channel, this might even be the first video that you've ever clicked on, I have a lot of videos on this channel of chess openings. And some of those openings you may know because they're, meme-worthy or very popular, like the London system, the Caro-Kann defense, the Sicilian defense, the Vienna. In this video, we will do a deep dive on how you can play the London system. Not like a boring noob that repeats the same moves every single time, but like an attacking player who is trying to win, all right? And do it in the form of STOCKFISH, the most powerful computer in the world. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. That's the entire introduction. I'm wearing my Chessly hoodie. Chessly is my educational platform. I have a London course on there. You can check it out if you haven't already. And maybe this opening will, maybe this video will, reinvent your perception of this opening. We are heading to Prague in the Czech Republic, the city of many bridges, I believe. And this is a game played between Sam Shankland, a strong American grandmaster, and Edis Gürel, who is a Turkish superstar prodigy chess player. Now, I have another video on this channel just purely on playing the London. So if you clicked on this video and you want to learn how to play this this opening from scratch, wrong place to do it, but you're still going to learn a lot, and you can then go either on to that video or Chessly. Okay, this is the London system. It's one of the most underappreciated and over-memed openings. I'm guilty of the same thing. And in a nutshell, White just wants a very easy way to develop these pieces, then puts up a little pyramid of pawns, puts the knight here, and puts the bishop here. But there is a way to play this opening like an engine, like a computer. There's a way to play this opening in a very aggressive and dynamic fashion, which involves hopping this knight into the center of the board very early and actually launching these pawns up the board without ever even castling sometimes. So first of all, the best way for black to play against this opening is either to attack this bishop right away or to play c5. In general, your d and c pawns and queen's pawn games go together. In this particular game, Gürel chose to play e6. Sam Shankland played e3. Everything is normal so far. And then if black plays c5 here, which is one of the most common moves, white obviously has to also build up the pyramid and then put the knight in the center on e5. But the move bishop d6 was the move that was played in the game, offering a trade of bishops. Now, if you have any experience in London, and even if you don't take this bishop. It just helps black develop, and if anything, it stops white, from hopping in here, even at the cost of doubling the pawns. But the move that Sam Shankland played here is this immediate move, knight to e5. This move has gotten very trendy recently, and the truth is you can sort of play it all the time. And, even if black plays like this, and you go here, and then black plays knight c6, like, at some point, you can kind of immediately play this move without developing these pieces. And the point is, you will generate an attack very quickly on your opponent. Sometimes you even end up having the time to bring the bishop back and set up what's called a stonewall formation like this. But in general, you put the knight here, you put the bishop here, and you actually just attack without ever even castling. Now, an important component of this, of course, is that black castles. Otherwise, well, you can still probably play like this, but black has not castled the king. In this game, it is castled, and now the games begin. So this is the position. And it's a very unique approach. So Sam Shankland plays knight d2 because he's preserving the move c3. Black played c5, and obviously the move c3 appears. And now, black can choose a variety of different moves. Most players with black pieces will play here. They will play this move. That's not what Edis played. I will show you what Edis played in a second. Again, bishop d3. Black struggles to take here. If black takes, you take, the knight drops back, white continues with the attack, and there are already sacrificial and winning ideas, by the way. Like, for example, this doesn't quite work. I wish it did. It almost works. Right? The Greek gift sacrifice, if you don't know what the Greek gift sacrifice is, it's a sacrifice on the h7 square where the king is the only thing defending it, the knight jumps in, the queen comes in, and mate is delivered. It doesn't quite work in this particular instance, but it damn near almost works. Now, the move that it is played in this game is a very unique move. It's this move c4. And basically he's saying, well, Sam, it was stupid of you not to put your bishop on this square because now you can't. And I'm going to build over here behind this space advantage. And here comes this move h4. And like I've already said, I have played a lot of these positions in my life. For example, if we go back to the very beginning, one of my favorite openings involves putting the bishop on g5, the Trompowsky or the Torre. And let me just show you how I do it in those positions, all right? I do a lot of the same stuff. But ultimately what ends up happening is I set up a stone wall, first of all. Then I have a bishop here, and when black does this, I play h4. I don't castle, and I do what's called a fish hook. And I put the bait on the end, and I immediately attack. And if they don't take my bishop, what I end up doing is I end up taking and still launching the g-pawn forward, getting all my pieces over here. So this is a similar position as they have in the game, except Sam Shanklin has a bishop on the f4 square, right? So watch. And there he goes h4. Now, already it's actually kind of annoying here to play with black, because if you meet this move, it's a severe weakening of not just that pawn, of also this square. And now we have the exact same position that I just showed you, except black has a target here, which is obviously going to be exploited. So black cannot play h5. Can black play h6? No, it's actually even worse. It's even worse to play h6, because you play g4. This pawn in front of the castled king is what we call a hook in chess, just in case you didn't know. And you target the hook. That's what you do. That pawn is going to be a hook, which can be traded off. So it's even worse. So the best thing that black can do here is ignore it. And Sam Shanklin keeps going. Now black could maybe play h6, but still we have g4, g5. So he ignores it again, Edis, and Sam walks the pawn the entire length of the board. This is what I'm saying. This is the London with a little bit of a spice to it. You know what I'm saying? And you can incorporate this type of a London into your life, or a Trompowsky, as I just showed you. And now we have this position. Now, again, these guys are 2,600 ELO Grandmasters. They are monsters. Edis is not just going to get checkmated, but watch as this pawn puts a nagging pressure on the black position. This type of chess was pioneered in 2017 by AlphaZero. I have a video on this channel, AlphaZero Stockfish. AlphaZero was the supercomputer created by Google DeepMind, and what it loved to do is advance H-pawns. It loved to put flank pawns in positions like this because in the long run, it created enough terror in the opposing position that made it difficult to sustain the defenses. And in the long run, if white were to win this pawn would promote. So now watch as the entire game goes on, right? Shanklin trades the pieces. He no longer wants an attack. I mean, make no mistake, he would love to put his queen on g7. It's just going to be impossible. And now watch as a sustained pressure is applied while the entire game goes on. Shanklin would love if we got down to a position where this pawn was the cause of the collapse of the position for black. He would love it. And maybe in defending that pawn, black overexerted and simply went on to lose. So b5. It is doing exactly what he's supposed to do. Shanklin, meanwhile, playing a3, waving him on. Come get me. Bishop d7. Notice, by the way, this type of play leaves black with 7 light-squared pawns. That means black's bishop is not particularly happy. The bishop would much rather be on h8, defending the king, staring at the center, ready for the position to open up. Bishop e2. a5. I mean, what else are you going to do, right? It makes sense. You're trying to go for b4. Now Sam castles. This is crazy. This is Stockfish level chess. You push your h-pawn the entire length of the board, and now it's just a thorn. It's just annoying. There's no way to get rid of it. You know, you would love if black could play knight e7, knight f5. You can't, because I'm going to immediately go e4. You don't have time. And if black is careless for a second and goes here, it's check, right? And it's game over. So you have to be very, very, very careful. So castles. And if black goes b4, now I'm going to start poking. I'm going to start poking. Maybe we're going to go to an endgame. You got to defend yourself, and suddenly you've lost the pawn. So Edis does play knight e7 and tries to play knight f5. Now, Sam here could play e4. He instead opts for rook e1. The move knight f5 will just run into queen h3 retreating, or even e4, and if you take this, Your king has to defend this. This is not particularly pleasant for black. You're probably just losing again. Why are you losing? Ridiculous move g4. The idea of g4 is to bring up the king and rook h1. This is the London on steroids. This is not the London that you were taught in a YouTube short or a video that you play the exact same way every single time. So knight e7, rook e1, black plays bishop c6, and Sam can continuously in this middle game, perhaps the only thing that he did wrong in this game is he wasn't aggressive enough with a central pawn break. Instead, he opted for bishop f3. Bishop f3 is a move that makes a lot of sense. He's simply preparing this move and not committing just yet. And he's going to control the 2 pawn breaks in the position, so he can ultimately, get in, cause some damage. The knight will try to jump in, etc. Now, Edis is defending himself. He's just playing rook e8. But look at the computer evaluation. It is slowly loving White's position. It is absolutely loving the way that he has handled this. So b3 now played. All right. We are looking to break apart the black position because in the long run, that pawn that we pushed is going to be the difference maker. The knight goes to f5. Sam defends himself, and obviously g4 is always an idea here. Also bishop g4 and taking the knight, also e4, a lot of different ideas. Feeling the pressure, Edis takes. The knight arrives on the b3 square. Now we are straight up threatening to take a pawn. So black goes to defend it. And also the knight will live on c5. It's a very comfortable outpost, temporary outpost. That knight could obviously trade, but knight c5 is just a very, nice move. Problem with it is that black is going to try to win this pawn. So the queen goes to d8. We go bishop e2. Continuous pressure over here. Black plays knight d6. Sam puts the knight on c5 because now the black knight took its eye off the pawn. Queen e7. Now queen h2. So the pressure is over here, right? Sam is putting pressure on that side of the board. Black plays f6. Okay, that's a committal decision, which fights for some dark squares, but potentially creates further long-term weaknesses in the position. Bishop g4. That's a very simple one. I don't really have to explain that. Black goes back in defense. Again, Sam spends this game not making breaks. Like a4 here now is very, very strong according to the computer, because the point is that you take, bring the bishop back, take, and infiltrate. You just infiltrate with your rooks. That's the plan. Sam makes another improving move. Still, his position is very nice. Now black is committed to making a pawn move. Sam goes here. I like that move, right? Controlling this, the bishop is going to drop back, the rook is going to come here. Like, there's a lot of pressure on the position. So he brings this back. And by the way, can we just say, Edis, I told you, the worst bishop in a long time. Every pawn black has is almost on a line square. In fact, a few moves ago, right, it's like every move, black's light squared pawns are not doing him any justice. Rook here, bishop g4, bishop d7. Now Sam senses this is the moment. He goes e4. The only move that black has here, not to lose the game, is to sacrifice the rook. It's a defensive measure. He's going to do this. And now Sam counter-sacrifices the rook. And we have this position. So ultimately, this pawn is still a massive, massive difference maker. It's still controlling the king. And in the long run, if that pawn falls, black's entire position falls apart. Because obviously I will promote. So black has to worry about that pawn. Now white also has another pawn over here. That's a weakness, and we have the d file. Queen c7, look at this move. f5 counterattacking measure. But that's a fatal mistake. It was better here for black to play rook c8. This was the only defensive move. And I guess he must have felt the pressure here. Or maybe he didn't like queen b7 or something. Because he cannot take the pawn on c5. Here he had to go king f7. This was the only way to survive. Rook takes b5, black has to find another key move, and that's how you have to survive the position. But after queen c7, f5 was played, and this is losing. This is losing now, because here, the move rook d1, attacking the bishop, wins the game for white. You leave this bishop to perish, you get in with the rook, and it's game over. I'm not sure why Sam didn't play this move. Maybe he didn't like some form of counterplay. I'm really not sure. Maybe he didn't like rook f7, but this is a totally winning position, because if black tries to create counterplay, well, kind of funny, you just go back. And black is totally lost. But instead of that, chess doesn't always have clean finishes. The bishop went back to e2. And now, again, the move king f7 is the saving grace, but clearly feeling the pressure here, Gorel must have just thought that he was losing anyway, because his position is falling apart. And may I just say, Every problem presented throughout this game for the black position continued until move 38. This is the 38th move of the game. Can you believe that? 38 moves. The pawn is still there. Almost every other pawn in white's position is on a dark square. By the way, g3 will be played shortly. And every pawn white has is on a dark square. Every single pawn that black has is on a light square. And black has problems here, both with the fact that the queen is much more powerful. These pieces are tied up. And the king is weak. The king is weak because mate is always threatened in the future. And that pawn is always weak. It's a really, really big problem. Look at this. Bishop takes b5. Totally winning position. Gorel goes for counterplay. He's losing his bishop. Of course, he can't take the bishop because he's going to lose his queen. Bishop takes d7. Pawn takes f2. King takes. And the final pawn. Every pawn that white has ended up on a dark square. Every pawn that black has stayed on a light square for the duration of the game. A tragedy, right? Now, the only saving grace here for black is he can give an infinite amount of checks. And if you don't know, repeating a position 3 times in chess in the form of checks is called perpetual check. And in this position would save the game. So you're going to give a lot of checks. But the white king is going to go running. He runs across the board. And guess who's going to protect him over there? The queen. Queen b5. You can give some more checks. It doesn't really matter. Bishop c6. And in this position, black resigned. Black resigned because what's going to happen is he's going to ultimately lose the pawn. And then he's going to go on and lose the game. And the craziest thing about this whole thing, just like, in case you wanted to know in a nutshell, is this. This pawn won white the game. This is what happens when you play the London like a supercomputer. Sometimes it leads to just brutal checkmates by using your H and G pawns, and other times it leads to a deep, long run into the endgame where the literal, the biggest problem of the black position is something that you caused. And it was a problem throughout this game. Throughout this entire middle game, black struggled to come up with a plan. It was really difficult for him to mobilize his pawn structure because he felt like his king was so weak. That's why he went here. And for a moment, it looked like he had a little bit of a safety net. White just kept attacking, and Sam might have not broken at, the exact moment that the computer blessed. He had a couple of other moments, but he went for this. Ultimately, if black had defended himself perfectly, this would be a video about incredible and tenacious defense, but that doesn't always happen. You know what I'm saying? This is a way to handle your Londons with a degree of, of stockfish. This H4 stuff, H4, G4 stuff. This is really, really nasty stuff. I'm telling you guys, especially when the opponent castles. So if you're a London player, try to play like this in your next few games. Leave this knight here. Reinforce this knight. Either reinforce it by dropping the bishop back and putting the pawn on f4. By the way, if you play the Trempowsky attack, when the bishop is on g5, all the same stuff applies. e3, c3, knight d2, bishop d3, and then just start, delay your castling. Ultimately, what this has to do with the fact is that white delayed the castling. In this particular game, white castled after, getting to this deep position. But sometimes you can literally just not castle. And like I have already said, when the opponent tries to defend against you, it actually just makes things worse. They could play knight h7, you still go g5, and before they know it, they're getting checkmated. This is how you play the London system, but don't behave like a total dork. Okay? This is how you play the London system if you want to beat people aggressively and not just, bore them to death. Try this in your own games. If you don't play the London, that's okay. It's kind of it's one of these really bad flus that you can get sick with that doesn't go away. You ever gotten sick and then you have a cough that stays around for a month and a half? That's kind of like the London system. Once you get it, you kind of get a little bit sick in the head and physically, but I'm just joking. It's honestly, if you don't play the London in a lazy way where you just put the exact same moves every single time castle, it's actually quite cool. So I like the way that Sam Shanklin handled this, advancing his h-pawn up the board without castling, creating a long-term weakness in the black position. And he went on to win a very, very nice positional game. Try this out in your own games, all right? A little bit of Stockfish infusion. And if you like this type of content where I analyze practical games played at a high level in openings that are very popular, like London, Caro-Kann, Vienna, whatever it is, let me know in the comments, and I can do more of these. As always, if you'd like to get better at openings, middle games, tactics, whatever, whether you're a beginner, intermediate player, or advanced, check out my educational platform, Chessly. There is always a link in the description. There is a 7-day free trial that you can test out openings. No card is required. Not a gimmick, not a scam. And that's all. That's all I've got for you today. Get out of here.